Srila Prabhupada ki, Ananta Kota Vaishnava Vrinda ki, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki, Premsing Ho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopi Gopinath Chamakun Radhikun Kiri Govardhana Ki Vrindavan Dham Ki Mayapur Dham Ki Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jamuna Maya Ki Ganga Maya Ki Tulsi Devi Ki Bhakti Devi Ki Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Harinam Sankirtan Yogi Ki Brihat Madonna Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Transcendental Bhagavad Gita Distribution Key. Gaur Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Glories to Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga. Hare Krishna. So, welcome to Tuesday morning's Bhagavatam class. And we're just coming towards the end of the story of Bhishma Dev. The section in the Bhagavatam about Bhishma Dev. And let me see now. Bhishma Dev has passed, and now Yudhishthira is heading back to Hastinapur. So I'll start with the Sanskrit. Tato Yudhishthiro Gatva Saha Krishno Gajahavayam Pitaram Sanyayam Asha Gandharim Cha Tapashvinim. And the word for word translation. Tata.
Tata.
Thereafter.
Thereafter.
Yudhishthira.
Yudhishthira.
Maharaj Yudhishthira.
Maharaj Yudhishthira.
Gatva.
Gatva.
Going there.
Going there.
Saha.
Saha.
With. Krishna.
Krishna.
The Lord.
The Lord.
Gajavayam.
Gajavayam.
In the capital named Gajvaya.
In the capital named Gajvaya.
Hastinapur.
Hastinapur.
Pitaram.
Pitaram.
Unto his uncle Dhritarashtra.
Unto his uncle Dhritarashtra.
Santvayam.
Santvayam.
Asa. Consoled. Gandharim. The wife of Dhritarashtra. Gandhari.
The wife of yes.
Cha.
Cha.
And Tadpashvinim.
Tadpashvinim.
An ascetic lady.
An ascetic lady.
I thought you had the book there, which is sorry. Translation. Thereafter, Maharaj Yudhishthira at once went to his capital Hastinapur, accompanied by Lord Sri Krishna, and there he consoled his uncle and aunt Gandhari, who was an ascetic. Purport. Dhritarashtra and Gandhari, the father and mother of Duryodhana and his brothers, were the elder uncle and aunt of Maharaj Yudhishthira. After the battle of Kurukshetra, the celebrated couple, having lost all their sons and grandsons, were under the care of Maharaj Yudhishthira. They were passing their days in great agony over such a heavy loss of life, and were practically living the life of ascetics. The death news of Bhishma Dev, uncle of Dhritarashtra, was another great shock for the king and the queen, and therefore they required solace from Maharaj Yudhishthira. Maharaj Yudhishthira was conscious of his duty, and he at once hurried to the spot with Lord Krishna, and satisfied the bereaved Dhritarashtra with kind words from both himself and the Lord also. Gandhari was a powerful ascetic, although she was living the life of a faithful wife and a kind mother. It is said that Gandhari also voluntarily closed her eyes because of the blindness of her husband. A wife's duty is to follow the husband cent per cent, and Gandhari was so true to her husband that she followed him even in his perpetual blindness. Therefore, in her actions, she was a great ascetic. Besides that, the shock she suffered because of the wholesale killing of her 100 sons and her grandsons also was certainly too much for a woman. But she suffered all this just like an ascetic. Gandhari, although a woman, is no less than Bhishma Dev in character. They are both remarkable personalities in the Mahabharata. Amagina Tirandasya Jana Jana Shakul Chalakaya Chakshur Militamina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance. My spiritual master opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisance. So we have another great verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam. Every verse is great, and it's an extraordinary juncture again, that in this whole story where there is a fratricidal war, and the result of it is that the great king and queen, all their sons were killed. And who? By their cousin brothers. And now we have the extraordinary circumstance whereby the person who killed all their sons is, or a person responsible for killing all their sons, is coming to console them. Oh, right. How does one get one's head around that? Well, Prabhupada talks about it in the purport when he says that Yudhishthira saw that as his duty, and he exercised his duty 100%. Just like he exercised his duty on the battlefield. He didn't want the war, he tried everything to avoid the war. All he wanted was 5 little villages even just to rule over, and he would have been happy. But the evil-minded son of Dhritarashtra and Duryodhana wouldn't allow this to happen. So the evil-minded son of an evil-minded father, one might say. And now we're talking about the wife of an evil-minded father. How does this all kind of fit in? Prabhupada in the purport at the end says that Gandhari was as good, how does he put it? Gandhari, although a woman, is no less than Bhishma Dev in character. No less in character. Interesting. So the character was the same. They're coming from the same kind of culture, where they were both very devoted to the Vedic culture, you could say. So in that sense, they were the same. And but it's interesting how, again, Prabhupada describes Gandhari as an ascetic. Doesn't necessarily say that she's a devotee. Now, ultimately, she is a devotee, as we know, and she's performing a role in a very significant pastime on Krishna's, when Krishna appears on this planet. And in fact, not only did Krishna go to console Bhishma Dev, but he went and he consoled Gandhari. But we don't hear about that in the Bhagavatam. That's interesting, isn't it? That we don't hear about Krishna going afterwards. It just, Prabhupada mentions it in the purport. So he says that accompanied by, he said accompanied by Lord Sri Krishna. And there he consoled uncle and aunt Gandhari, but that's the only reference to it. Now there is also this point from the Bhagavatam, which might have happened at this time. This is why I'm saying that it might not have been included, or I'm not speculating about it, but I'm saying that it wasn't included. So why, you could ask that question, is that at this point that was it at that point that Gandhari cursed Krishna, that all his family members would be killed? In fact, it happened, I think, well, supposedly it happened 36 years later, when all the members of the Yadu dynasty, they engaged as well in another fratricidal war, which is what the curse of Gandhari was. Like Bhishma Dev, although he flung arrows and spears at Krishna, once Krishna took up his the shield, or took up the wheel, yes, to kill him, Bhishma immediately put down his arms and was so happy to see Krishna in that position, because he saw him as a great he saw him as Krishna, but he also saw him as he fulfilled his promise to Arjuna. He broke his own promise to fulfill Arjuna's promise, and so that is, sorry, I'm probably not getting that exactly right. Krishna gave up his own promise, so that he would force, to protect. He partook in the war, but he protected his devotee, and he protected Bhishma's promise as well that he would kill one of the Pandavas that day. But by the end of the day, Krishna had to intervene, so that wouldn't happen. But anyway, I don't want to get into technicalities of that just at the moment. But in this particular instance, Bhishma was Gandhari actually cursed Krishna, whereas Bhishma didn't in that sense. There's a difference. Gandhari cursed Krishna that all his family would be destroyed. You're looking confused there, Shani. What was that?
No, I'm quite shocked because she was supposed to be ascetic and as good as Bhishma Dev, so
Yeah.
it's pretty shocking.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Behaviour.
She's an ascetic. But actually, of course, then we have to understand that it's Krishna's pastimes. Well, I mean, Krishna's great devotees are the only ones who take, involved in Krishna's pastimes. Like when Krishna wanted to fight, it was Jai and Vijay, his two gatekeepers in Vrindavan, who he engaged in the fight, who took the position of the demons for three births to fight Krishna. So you have to be very special to do something like that. And as we know, as Krishna's pastimes, he wanted to wind up the pastimes. So therefore, he took all of his family out because he understood that they would have been a burden on the planet. That's how Prabhupada explains it. So he had to somehow or other wind up these pastimes on this planet. So he used the curse of Gandhari as an excuse, you could say, to remove the Yadavas from the planet. So these are different things that are going on, and this is the Leela that goes on in Bhagavatam. It goes on in the Mahabharata as well. They're not living entities, not normal living entities, shall we say. So, but it's not referred to heavily in the Bhagavatam. And I was just reading a verse this morning from the, and this is again about Krishna keeping the promise of his devotee. It was when Prahlad Maharaj was the person who went and pacified Lord Nrsingadev. He went up with befolded hands, and Lord Nrsingadev put his hand on Prahlad Maharaj's head and gave him the mercy. Whereas he didn't do it for Lord Brahma, for the goddess of fortune, for Lord Shiva. So he was very affectionate towards his devotee. But in this, Prabhupada says that everyone gets experience through these historical incidents. So what does Prabhupada mean in that? Well, it means that the Bhagavatam, the stories of the Bhagavatam, are very much meant for us to gain experience from, to know how to act. I'll just read in 7:9:24. Sorry, let's get this open. Because it's interesting. Within this material world, Prabhupada's making another point here. Within this material world, one should understand by practical experience the value of material opulence, longevity, and influence. Okay, understand the value of longevity, influence, and opulence, material opulence. What is the value of that, Ishani? I'll ask you that question.
Oh God.
What is from practical experience within the material world, what is the value of material opulence and longevity?
Materially speaking, or how you can use it spiritually?
No, actually, just seeing it from a
material point of view.
Yeah.
It can give you influence, power.
No, you're still looking at it from a devotee point of view.
Am I?
Yeah. No, it has no significance.
Okay.
Yeah. There's no significance because, and Prabhupada says, we have actual experience that even on this planet, there have been many great politicians and military commanders like Napoleon, Hitler, Subhas Chandra Bose, and Gandhi. But as soon as their lives were finished, their popularity, influence, and everything else was finished also. Everything is finished. Okay, you could say a devotee, if he's famous, can live on, all right, but everything that's the opulence, longevity, and influence in a material point of view have no value. Prahlad Maharaj formerly gathered the same experience by seeing the activities of Hiranyakashipu's great father. So Prahlad saw what Hiranyakashipu had all of these things, and yet within less than a second they were removed by Krishna. So Prahlad Maharaj's understanding then was that that he understood from the Bhagavatam, from his practical experience of Hiranyakashipu, that none of these things are any use. Prahlad Maharaj could have had huge kingdom, incredible opulence. He was the next in line. He could have taken over all that, but he wasn't interested one bit in it, not even a tiny bit, whereas his father was completely absorbed in it. So therefore Prahlad Maharaj did not give any importance to anything in this material world. No importance to anything. No one can maintain his body or material achievements forever. A Vaishnava can understand that nothing within the material world, not even that which is powerful, opulent or influential, can endure. At any time, such things may be vanquished. And who can vanquish them? The Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, one should conclusively understand that no one is greater than the Supreme Lord. And one must agree to this principle. One must surrender to the Lord and be saved from the wheel of repeated birth and death. So, actually, I read the wrong purport in that, because I was meant to read the next purport where it stated that by studying Srimad Bhagavatam, every intelligent man can experience that, like that of Prahlad Maharaj, through the historical incidents mentioned in this great literature of spiritual knowledge. So he can understand by hearing the stories of Bhagavatam what is the nature of the world. So that's the point I'm trying to make here. But just by hearing these stories, one can understand the value of the material world. So Krishna and all the actors in the drama and Krishna's when he's here are also important. So therefore Gandhari is also important, very much so. But we can see that in a different way she's important in that sense. And actually when she was leaving her body, Krishna was not personally present. Krishna went back, consoled her. But what did Krishna do? Like he was personally present with Bhishma Dev, but when Gandhari and Dhritarashtra were leaving, he sent his devotee Vidura. So he was even more merciful in that sense, because he sent Vidura, the great devotee, to be with Gandhari and Dhritarashtra when they were leaving their body. In fact, it was only through their preaching that actually they came to their senses in the end, and they began to understand the temporariness of this world. I don't know if anyone like me has when they've read the Mahabharata, they've been so frustrated by listening to the monologue of Dhritarashtra. It is one of the most painful experiences I've ever experienced, listening to him going back and forth about how he should be acting in such a way, but he can't act because he's so weak, and it's just the most miserable experience to listen to the way he speaks. Sorry about that, folks. But that is the nature of a living entity who is completely covered by material energy. But the good thing is that, and that's even with the presence of Krishna in his family, he still had that particular experience. But he was lucky that his brother was a devotee of Krishna, and he actually preached to him eventually. At the end, he eventually preached to him and let him see his pathetic situation, as I said at the beginning, that he was in the court of the person who killed all his sons, and he was eating and sleeping by the mercy of that person. So it was an absolutely outrageous situation to be in. And I suppose even more incredible is that Gandhari stuck by him, in that situation. She just completely stuck by the rules of the culture of the time. But just as Bhishma stuck by the rules of the culture of the time, still he committed mistakes, and that is also something that we can learn from the Bhagavatam. Whereas some of the other devotees who are just surrendered unto Krishna didn't completely surrender unto Krishna, and did not put their own value on their great vow. But they just surrendered to Krishna no matter what. They weren't even worried about their vows. So who can we put in that category? A person who doesn't worry about the vows but is just surrendered to Krishna? The gopis of Vrindavan, Mother Yashoda. The gopis, they were in the same culture. Remember, this was happening around the same time. The gopis were in that same culture. Like Gandhari stuck by her husband even though he was I don't want to say the world, but he acted abominably. No, he wouldn't listen to any of the great. But the only thing that I found that was good about that, the descriptions of Dhritarashtra, at least you understood him as a person, how he was, swayed back and forth all the time. I'm not saying in this instance that I'm not swayed back and forth all the time, but just in the way that he wasn't able to come down on the side of Krishna or on the side of righteousness, and he was so covered over by his over affection for his son. Of course, that's something also which we can learn from as well. But in this particular instance, Gandhari and Bhishma, they were both very, fixed in the culture of the time, and great exponents of it. But yet, it's Sarvadharman Parityajaman Vikamsharanam Hantan Sarva Papedo Mokshikshami Mahasujaha. That surrender to Krishna is the ultimate in everything, and this is what we should learn. We're coming in the line of Lord Chaitanya. I love that verse, but I can never actually Gopi Pada. Dasa Dasa Nudasa, and the servant of the servant of the servant of the Supreme Lord. That is the situation that we are in, and that is what we have to try to kind of aspire to as well, as we know, that we're the servant of the servant. That is Krishna's instruction at the end of the Bhagavatam, and Krishna is even, as we saw in these instances, Krishna is even serving. Krishna serves Arjuna because he breaks his own vow just so that he can serve his devotee, and also Krishna is fulfilling the vow of his devotee. In that sense, he's cursed by his devotee Gandhari, and then he takes the curse. Krishna could have easily counter-cursed or dismissed the curse of Gandhari. She's a living entity cursing God, but still he went along with it. Krishna is just so amazing like this, and also he came and he protected Prahlad, mainly because Narada Muni had told Krita, what's her name? Oh my God, I can't remember her name now. It's Hiranyakashipu's wife, Krita Dev, I'm not very expert, but she went to seek protection from Narada Muni, and Narada Muni told her he would protect her son. So even when from any enemies, that was what he said. So the enemy, of course, was his father, and he went to kill Prahlad Maharaj. But because of the promise of Narada Muni, Krishna protected Prahlad. So there's all these different reasons why these things happen. As we see that in the prayers of Queen Kunti, all the different reasons why Krishna came. So many different reasons. Krishna can achieve so many things with one activity. So that's the glory of Krishna. And we see it here again with in this particular instance when he's going back with Yudhishthira to console Dhritarashtra and Gandhari. It's just an amazing situation because he's just after being with Bhishma. He's after there's been a horrific war that has gone on, and Krishna is still with Yudhishthira, going around performing the duties and perhaps you could say giving closure to everything. Proper closure, you could say, because this is what Krishna himself tried to stop the battle of Kurukshetra. But he was actually attacked by Duryodhana, even when he was trying to do that. But then he showed his universal form, so they all backed off quickly enough. It's the glory of the Bhagavatam, of the Mahabharata, that we get our life air from. This is the real history of the world. This is where people say we should learn from history, but we should learn from all the activities and all the stories in the Bhagavatam, how we should live our life. And the Bhagavatam is, it has arisen just after the departure of Lord Krishna to his abode. And people who have lost their vision due to the dense darkness of Kali Yuga shall get light from this Purana.
Darkness of ignorance.
Pardon?
Sorry, darkness of ignorance.
Yeah. So we can see that people are talking about a lot today about the world is in confusion, there's lack of values, there's no clear leadership, people have lost faith in everything. But we shouldn't lose faith in that incredible aspect of the Bhagavatam, you know. It's and that verse in the preface, or not in the preface, in the introduction. This Bhagavad Purana is as brilliant as the sun, and it has arisen just after the departure of Lord Krishna to his own abode, accompanied by religion, knowledge, etc. Persons who have lost their vision due to the dense darkness of ignorance in the age of Kali shall get light from this Purana. That's a Srimad Bhagavatam 1.3.43. So that is another reason why we should be outside the material realm, you know, is why every day is so important, because every minute is so important and every second is so important, because we should be beyond the influence of the material nature. That is what Krishna wants, that's what Prabhupada wanted for us. Obviously that's the position of a pure devotee. But that is what is actually being propounded in this whole Krishna consciousness movement. Because to the degree that we stay back in the material world, so we'll be affected by the material world, and therefore will be affected by the darkness and the confusion in the material world. There isn't any confusion in the material world, because the clarity is there in the Bhagavatam of how we should live our life. There's 24 hours a day, that's what Prabhupada said, we should be thinking of Krishna. Because where there is Krishna, there is no darkness, you know. It's only when we turn away from Krishna that the darkness comes. So, one way in which we turn away from Krishna is because we have we think there is some happiness in the material world, and that happiness can be very subtle. We can think of anything which is material that you have a little yen for, which you know is not Krishna conscious. Think of something. You might have a yen for movies, a yen for sport, a yen for... You're getting some little satisfaction. Your mind thinks. Your mind is being thought, has been expressed, or has been convinced that there is some happiness there. So even when we're trying to control our mind, doing something Krishna conscious, suddenly the mind will come up with something and we say, oh yeah, there's some happiness there. And there isn't, you know. So that is how we're conditioned. That's how we've been conditioned heavily by material nature. So that can come at any time. But Krishna says, Prabhupada says, the way that we get out of this is through constant practice and detachment, you know. That's how we can get free. I'm trying to find that verse in the Bhagavatam, but we can be... oh yeah, Arjuna asks, but to control the mind seems to be more difficult than controlling the wind. I'm sorry, I should have done the research on this a little bit before. But Arjuna is saying, Chanchalam hi mana Krishna. Lord Sri Krishna said, Almighty armed son of Kunti, it is undoubtedly very difficult to curb the restless mind, but it is possible by suitable practice and detachment. So detachment actually comes through practice, through performing devotional service. It causes knowledge and detachment for the world by hearing the Bhagavatam. And then the next verse, for one whose mind is unbridled, self-realization is difficult work. But he whose mind is controlled and who strives by appropriate means is assured of success. So Krishna says we're assured of success. So we will get to the stage where we're 100% engaged in Krishna's service. That may take a while. It may take many lifetimes, you could say, but we're by constant practice and detachment, and we will strive by appropriate means. And Prabhupada has given us those appropriate means, so we should have full faith in that by practice of sadhana bhakti, and then eventually we will get onto for the next stage of raganuga bhakti, where it becomes spontaneous. That is something which is there, and we'll get more faith in it. The more we practice, the more we'll get faith, because we can see the results. The results are there, and the more that it's there, the more we want to tell other people about it as well. Tasman, the person who actually says this to the devotees, Krishna is very pleased, and then we get more mercy from Krishna that way as well, when we start telling other people, because Krishna then gives us the mercy. And when we're preaching, we're speaking ourselves, so we're also preaching to ourselves. So it's an incredible process, the 9 processes of bhakti. But these 9 processes take us out of the material realm, and they take us into the spiritual realm, and it gives us that opportunity to experience actual Krishna consciousness, the bliss. It starts with some taste, and then it goes towards some steadiness, taste, and then some attachment, and then it becomes higher again. These are the stages that are there, and we shouldn't waste time. We shouldn't waste time on any of this. As I said at the beginning, every second is important. So it may seem that it's not important, or we may say, oh, I don't feel so good today, oh, things aren't going that well for me, oh, I get up in a bad mood, oh, and then you spend the whole day. I mean, there is a danger that we've done this for a lifetime. We not only do we do it for a day, but we do it for a lifetime. Oh, my life is no good, I just have to do this, oh, sure, anyway, just get into it, enjoy it, you can just, you waste a lifetime, and then you go and you vanish into a lower species, and you spend a whole big helter-skelter time being tossed around in lower species of life, and especially for want of just a little bit of focus and clarity and intention, and by hearing and by accepting and by not giving all this power of attorney to the mind to whisk us anyway around the planet. Even Arjuna found it difficult, but he said, Chan, the mind is restless, unsteady, and to control is more difficult than controlling the wind. But Prabhupada, Krishna says, he says it twice, that is possible by constant practice, suitable practice and determination and detachment, and appropriate means one is assured of, strives by appropriate means. So this, we do have to strive, but it becomes, Prabhupada uses this word, as easy as anything. It becomes as easy as anything. And one of the symptoms by which we know that we're in that situation is that we're not attracted to happiness, and we're not fearful of distress. So this fearful stage, this is one of the 4 things: eating, mating, sleeping, and defending. Defending was the fearful stage, where we're afraid of things. And if we're not afraid of the future, no matter what it brings, then we will know that's actually considered to be a sign that we're on the Brahmabhuta stage, or we're coming towards the Brahmabhuta stage. Because I don't want to go out tomorrow and experience that there's going to be, I'll become bankrupt, or I don't want to have something horrible to happen, But, and we're not going out with that kind of mood either, But whatever happens, I don't want to use that phrase, but whatever the material world throws up at you, whatever happens, you're not attached to it being so-called good or so-called bad, because this is where the pleasure of Krishna consciousness is. Because look at Queen Kunti, she was in bliss. Even in the most difficult situation, she was in bliss. So this is what Krishna consciousness actually is. And therefore we're not so, some big highlight comes from the newspaper. Oh yes, they're making a big to-do about some negative thing which has happened, and you know, all this negative news which comes across, and oh, what's going to happen now? You know, or you know, I always get this whole thing about you know, an ambulance going past, you know, or police, we're going to solve something, something's really major happening now. People trying to kind of create some sort of drama in their lives. I'm not saying there isn't drama in their lives, but it's just this whole kind of attraction and attachment to what's going on here in the world, which is ultimately, you know, is illusory. It's real, but it's illusory because it's temporary. And we shouldn't give the same significance to it. So this whole, you know, attempt to see the you know, what this verse come, Nashito Vijito Bhavo, Nabhavo Vijite Sataha, Ubior, those who are seers of the truth have concluded that of the non-permanent there is no endurance, and of the permanent there is no cessation. This they have studied by studying the nature of both. So
concluded.
This they have concluded by studying the nature of both. So this is the vision that we have to develop, you know. I can't find it at the moment, but this is the vision. This is the Bhagavat vision. This is the vision of eternity, which we have to. And this is the only place where there's happiness. This is actually the happiness in the material world when we have that vision. That's the only thing that can give us happiness. The so-called, you know, material shots, or you know, the material little perks, or the material so-called enjoyment. You know, you're going to get distress equally and opposite. And we've got, you know, hopefully whatever amount of time we have in these bodies, but we should make the best use of them. There was a devotee there who was consigned to cancer. He just wrote, he said, I'm not going to write much to you, but I just want to write this letter. He said, the thing that I've discovered is that use every minute wisely, because at the end you need every bit of progress that you've made. You need it. You absolutely need it. So I really appreciated that point, that he wrote that letter to us. And so in that way I'll be as alert as possible, not to waste a minute, or not to waste a second of a minute. Also the understanding that I'm not going to beat myself up if I do, you know, but that I'm always striving for perfection. I may be way short of it, but it's the activity of this, and actually experiencing it as well. And of course the importance as well is to be patient in this world. I talked to a couple of devotees recently, and we explained, we've been around for quite a long time, 30, 40 years. So actually the stuff that you learn after 30 or 40 years that you've been hearing for 30 or 40 years, but really comes home, you know, and that's why you tend to find some people, they completely take refuge in Srila Prabhupada and Srila Prabhupada's books, because he has very, very clearly delineated this so many years ago, and we actually get this experience of it happening. So just to conclude, I'll read the verse again. Thereafter Maharaj Yudhishthira at once went to his capital Hastinapur, accompanied by Lord Shri Krishna, and there he consoled his uncle and aunt Gandhari, who was an ascetic. Some of the highlights in it, two of the highlights, Prabhupada says that Gandhari, although a woman, is no less than Bhishmadev in character, and her actions, in her actions she was a great ascetic. Okay, any comments, any questions? Anybody listening? Anything from the four walls? Four walls there. They're only getting an echo from the four walls here.
Don't have the ears to hear, huh?
Yeah. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Jai.